Good evening and welcome to our regular council meeting on Monday, April the 17th, 2023. This evening we do not have a closed meeting, so the motion is that we convene an open session starting at 7 p.m. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Sadhu. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. For a moment of reflection this week, I wanted to touch on National Volunteer Week. It is an annual event that celebrates the contributions of volunteers and promotes volunteerism across the country. Yesterday marked the beginning of Volunteer Week. During this week especially, we take time to recognize the dedication and hard work of millions of volunteers who make a difference in their communities across Canada. Volunteers are essential to the fabric of Wilmot community as they play a crucial role in supporting and enriching the lives of residents and visitors alike. They help build a stronger, more connected Wilmot by giving their time, skills, and resources to support causes they care about. Without volunteers, many organizations and programs would not be able to operate, and many people would not receive the essential services and support that they need. During National Volunteer Week and throughout this year, it is important to acknowledge and show our appreciation for the contributions of volunteers and encourage more people to get involved. If you'd like to learn more about how you can become a volunteer, there are lots of volunteer opportunities available within the Township of Wilmot, and we actually have it at our website at wilmot.ca/volunteer. On to the territorial land acknowledgement, we have Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Solomon. We've gathered in Wilmot Township on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples. We also want to acknowledge the importance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before the Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should take only what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. By acknowledging this covenant and the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, we are reminded of our important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Okay, seeing none, there are no additions to the agenda, and the recommendation is that the agenda as presented for April 17th, 2023 be adopted. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Cressman. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. The minutes of the previous meeting are attached to the agenda, and the recommendation is that the minutes as follow be adopted as presented for the April 3rd, 2023 regular council meeting. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Cressman. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. We have no presentations or public meetings this evening. For the consent agenda, if any member of council has any questions and wants to remove an item for the consent agenda, please indicate so now. We will not be taking any questions on consent items unless they are requested to be removed from the regular agenda. Seeing no questions, the recommendation is that the consent agenda items 11.1 and 11.2 be approved. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Dunstall. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. On to reports. So 12.1, we will first get the recommendation on the floor, and that is that report CS 2023-09 be received for information purposes, and further, sorry, I just have missed a page here. My apologies. That council accepts the donation of approximately 14.1 acres of land on Brubaker Street, Baden from Mike Ulmer and Louise Venstra, and further, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the associated acknowledgement and direction and any other documents associated with the transfer, and further, that tax receipts be provided to the donors for A, the land donation in the amount determined by an independent certified appraisal secured by the township at the cost of Mike Ulmer, and B, the cost of any engineering review and reporting and permit fees and construction costs undertaken in relation to the removal of dam and all verified by receipts. To get this on the floor, may I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Sadhu, seconded by Councillor Cressman, and I will now call on our Director of Community Services. Okay, perfect. Sandy Jackson to introduce the report. And just a note for anyone that was looking over our agenda, there was a technical error and an image in the report did not display properly. So the image has now been put up on the screen for everyone to review. Over to you, Director Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. So this report is related to, as outlined in the resolution, a generous donation of 14.1 acres of naturalized land off Brubaker Street in Baden. The property owners, as outlined, Mr. Ulmer and Mr. Veenstra, approached the township a number of years ago regarding our potential interest in this land. And the property is a quite beautiful, naturally wooded wetland area that is ideal for future trail development for Baden and area residents, and it would be a really nice addition to the trail system throughout the township. Through the discussions, Mr. Andrew Martin, our Manager of Planning, has been working with the landowners as it relates to an adjacent zoning change application that was recently presented to Council. And this property abuts that area and is just a really great little spot that will be, as I said, a really good addition to our trails system. As outlined in the report, staff first brought this information forward to Council in December of 2021 and received approval for acceptance of the donation, providing a number of conditions were met prior to the land transfer. The report verifies that all the conditions have now been met and requests Council support for final acceptance of the lands and that the applicable tax receipts be issued for the value of the donation as outlined. And Mr. Martin and myself are here to answer any questions if Council has any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions? Councillor Cressman.
Yes, as I understand, and again, I had some issues with my computer and didn't see the updates on the actual structures, but as I understood, one of the conditions was repairs of the dam, which they attempted and it was unable to accomplish, and now what are the results of that? Will they remove the concrete structures that are in some of the pictures? Will they remain as part of the naturalized environment? Or I was just kind of interested in, is that heritage that's disappearing, or was it was it a site of some type of mill? Often that's what these represent historically for the township.
Through the Mayor, I believe it was more of a cattle transport type of bridge over top of the waterways. Mr. Martin can speak to that a little bit more, but it was removed completely, and that's the photo right there, shows you what it was, what it is now, and that's the prior photo. So that's the structure, and that's what remains. So it's really just a flow through for the water at this point in time.
Any additional questions, councillors? Okay, seeing none, we will now call the vote. All of those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Councillor Cressman, I just want to remind you that your mic is on there. Perfect. Moving on to item 12.2. The recommendation is rather long, so it is attached to your agenda. For reference, to get this on the floor, may I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Sadhu. And I will now call on our Director of Infrastructure. No, my apologies. It should be not infrastructure. It should be our Manager of Planning. Over to Mr. Martin, please.
Thank you, Mayor Salomon. So despite the length of the recommendation, it's a fairly simple application. There's a 12-unit apartment building under construction right now, and the applicants are proposing to convert that to a condominium ownership. None of the units are occupied, so it's not technically a conversion. Essentially, the property was subject to a public consultation process through a zoning and variance applications in the past. Standard condominiums do not require public meetings, and given the extensive public input that was provided leading up to its construction, staff felt those items were addressed already, and all the matters of construction are dealt with through a site plan approval and registered agreement. So this is just basically the last step in allowing conveyance of ownership. In the conditions, there were some matters to be addressed within the condominium declaration, and the wording owner is used. The consultants for the applicant had requested that wording owner in item 2 where the reference to owner is there, that be changed to corporation. So when the condominium declaration is registered, it's the condo corporation that looks after it, not the present owner of the property. And just to provide clarity on that, they request that we change that wording, and certainly staff have no concerns with that and are recommending approval.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. And we do have a registered delegation for this item, which is the MHBC Planning, who are representing on behalf of the applicant of Evenstone Homes Incorporated as an agent for the applicant. If you would like to make your presentation, and then we can open up the floor to council for questions. I believe they're joining us virtually.
Through you, the chair, where Rachel Nizer has entered the meeting. We are still waiting for Della Ross to join. She's in the waiting room. It's just the problem getting in, but they're ready to go.
Great, and I yield the floor to Rachel and Della.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. My name is Rachel Nizer. I'm here from MHBC Planning on behalf of the applicant to speak to item 12.2 on today's agenda. Della Ross from MHBC is also in attendance to assist with answering any questions. We would like to express that we are in support of the staff report and the amendment to condition 2C to shift the responsibility of this condition from the owner to the corporation, as outlined by the staff planner, Andrew Martin. I'd like to clarify that the shift in wording is only to be applied to condition 2C with respect to the maintenance of the stormwater management facilities. We would also like to reiterate that the development of the subject lands has undergone a detailed site plan approval process. As a part of our work preparing the planning brief, we reviewed the proposal with consideration for the planning policy framework applying to the subject lands. While I won't go into detail on our planning analysis at this time, I would like to advise council and the public that in our opinion, the proposal is consistent with the 2020 provincial policy statement and conforms to the regional and township official plan and the zoning bylaw. In light of these considerations, we respectfully request that council advance these applications. Thank you for your time. The team from MHBC is here to gladly answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Councillors, do you have any questions of Rachel, Della, or Mr. Martin? Okay, seeing none, we will now call the vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Cressman.
Yeah, this is maybe parcel of, I should have asked you this previously, Andrew. When something changes from a rental to a condominium, what impact does that have on the market? I understand then it requires people to put money down. I understand the concept of a condominium as compared to a rental apartment, but does that serve a different market segment, and where's the greatest need in Wilmot Township, or maybe that's not ours to determine?
Through Mayor Solomon, certainly there's a desire for rental incomes, but there's also a range of affordability and housing types that is required too in the community. So simply by registering a condominium, it doesn't mean that those units can't be rented out. It just means they have the opportunity to be sold and owned independently. So the option still exists there, but yeah, the conversion policies that deal with conversion of rental speak to buildings that are already occupied. Then there's a different set of policies that applies. But in this case, it was never rental yet because it hasn't been occupied, so those policies don't apply. But long story short, what I'm getting at is there's still opportunities for both ownership and rental in this form of condominium.
Councillor Martin.
First of all, thank you, Councillor Cressman, for asking that question. I was debating asking a question similar to that and didn't. And so I appreciate you saying that. And so through you, Mayor Salonen, I'm not trying to oppose this proposal this evening, but I am curious about that concept in terms of rental versus ownership, and wondering, is there something in the township that we should be doing to encourage the building of rental buildings? So on this specific project, I see there's a history, and I don't want to oppose something that has been in a process, but I'm thinking about new applications that have not come before us yet. Is there something that we can do to promote rental buildings?
I think just given that this is what's on the table right now, we will speak to this. That question, perhaps staff can come back at another point with information and recommendations if there's some strategy we can do, if that works, Councillor Martin?
I understand, Mayor Sallin, and I realize it was taking us in a different direction. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. Any additional questions on the matter at hand, councillors? All right, seeing none, I will now call the vote. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. For correspondence this evening, we have 3 items. Does anybody want to pull anything? It's also okay if you don't, I'm just asking. All right. Item 14 is our bylaws, and the recommendation is that bylaws as attached to this agenda be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2023-XX being a bylaw to regulate the prohibition or restriction of exotic animals. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Wilkinson, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. There are no notice of motions this evening. However, I do have multiple announcements. So I'm sure as many of you know, Earth Day is coming up this Saturday, April the 22nd. And Earth Day brings attention to the pressing issues facing our planet, such as climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. It encourages individuals and communities to take action towards a more sustainable future. However, I'd like to remind everyone it is not simply a day that we should be working towards helping improve our environment. That should be an everyday activity. But Wilmot is happy to hear that we had an overwhelming response to our first annual tree giveaway program. And that's called the Wilmot Roots. So just a reminder for those who did place an order, all available trees have been ordered, and we'd like to thank the community for their interest, and that you can pick up your pre-ordered trees at the Wilmot Recreation Complex this Saturday. You should have gotten a confirmation of what time to go based off of what kind of tree you requested, but also there is more information at wilmot.ca/wilmotroots. Also, in honor of Earth Day, the local organization Let's Tree Wilmot is hosting a tree planting at the Wilmot Rec Complex at Schmidt Woods this Saturday from 1:30 to 4:30. For more information and to register for this free event, please visit wilmothortsociety.ca. I definitely recommend, if you guys are around, to go out. It's a great activity and will help. I believe it's the final phase of planting in the Schmidt Woods. And we also have the Wilmot Heritage Day that has been rescheduled to this Wednesday, April the 19th. There are lots of beautiful posters around, local areas that you can get more information as well as online, but it will be starting at 6 p.m. and going until 9 p.m., including some displays, refreshments, and a presentation. And finally, from me at least, the Township is currently accepting applications to sit on our advisory and quasi-judicial committees. Applications are available online as well as in person at the Township office, and they are due by May the 1st. So if you are interested in joining any committee that the Township has, I would certainly recommend you looking into that. Councillors, do any of you have anything to raise? No? Okay. Seeing none, we did not have any closed meetings, so no business from that. So the confirmatory bylaw, as attached to the agenda, should be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed in open council. To move this, may I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Dunstall. All those in favor? And lastly, to adjourn, may I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Sadhu. All those in favor? And we're adjourned.